Hello and welcome again. In this lesson I'm going to show you what different lights Maya has, what are renderers, and what kind of lighting do we want in the scene. So to start off with, I'm just going to shift this house away from the scene because if I put lights in it, it's just going to block my view. So for now I'm just going to push it away. I'm going to use this plane, click and drag. Oh, that's too big. Okay, just gonna keep this in the center, right? Okay, great. Now, when you hit this button, this black button, which is the render view, it's gonna throw an image out which shows what is there in your viewport. You just have to select the viewport and click this render view, and it shows you in an image format, not in a 3D format, but in a 2D format, what your image looks like. This button is the render settings, which when we are going to finally render a whole scene, we're going to have a look at this. But for an overview, I'll just tell you what this means. This is the file name, say final render. This is the image format. This is if you want a single frame or an image sequence. This is a frame padding where you can put as many spaces as you want in the naming convention. This is the start frame and the end frame. And this is which camera do you want it to render from. I'm going to select camera 1 because that is what we're going to render it from. This is the image size, for what image size we want to render the whole sequence out. Okay, this is if you want to specify a certain image format or image size. This is what kind of units you want to give it to your image. You want pixel, inches, centimeters, etc. This is the resolution, and this is the aspect ratios. Okay, this is the type of renderer that we have over here. We have Maya software, hardware, and mental ray. If you don't have mental ray, all you have to do is go in this window, setting preferences, plugin manager, and then scroll down, and you need to locate something called as Maya 2MR, which is this. You just have to click loaded, probably auto load also, and hit the refresh button, and your mental ray rendering gets activated. It's a good render because sometimes the Maya default, which is Maya software, doesn't render out as per you want it to be. Okay, so that's rendering. Now let's see what lighting is and what kind of lights we have in Maya. So we go to create lights. I'm going to click on this line so that it pops it out. There we have it. And before I render anything else out, you see when you rendered this image, you saw some lights. This is not supposed to happen. It happened because there are some lights in Maya by default. As you can see, the default lights are enabled. If you check this off, and if you render this, it's going to give you a black image. But there are still objects. If you go in the alpha, you'll still see there are objects, but there are no lights at all. For that, now we're going to add some lights. I'm going to start off with directional light, which is one of the main lights that you use in nearly all of your scenes. I'm just going to click this, and it puts it right in the center of the axis. I'm going to drag it up so that I can see it properly. Probably scale this a bit. Okay, now that I have this, I'm just going to render this one frame and see how it looks. Okay, we do have some lights there. This was a previous one. It was pitch black. This is a current view. So we do have some lights there. Now I am going to just, this directional light is coming only from one direction. So I'm just going to rotate this a little bit, change its direction and make it coming from somewhere like on top. Directional lights are mostly suns or skies, but it can be about anything if the intensity is changed. Now you can see that the whole image has been lit up properly. So you get the understanding of how a directional light works. It doesn't matter where the light is. It can be under this. This is only for the directional light. It can be anywhere under the planes, under the objects, because whenever you render anything, it's still gonna act as one directional light. Yeah. Okay. Even the scaling doesn't matter. The scaling doesn't matter for any of the lights actually. You can scale it as much as you want, but it's still going to show you the same amount of light that it's going to pour out. Okay, now let's see what this directional light has inside. Okay, so just going to keep it like this so that we'll be able to see this properly. The first option is the type of directional light that you have. You can click on it and you can select which light you want from that particular light. If you want ambient will change into that. So for now it's directional, so I'm just going to tweak the directional light for now. This is the color. Lights everywhere are usually white in color unless they are manipulated by some objects. So this is the default color, but if you want this color, say if you have a tube light or a bouncing light that is coming from somewhere, and it's probably red in color, you just click this box and it'll pop. I'm just going to close this. When you click this box, it's going to pop up a small window, and then you can choose the color that you want. And when I select this window and hit render, it's going to give me that light. If I select green, it's going to give me green color. Select blue, it's blue color, and so on. Okay, for now I just want white, so I'm just going to change this back to white. Okay. Enter this out. Okay. Now I want, the next tab is shadows. Shadows come in two forms. One is called depth match shadows and one is called ray trace shadows. First we see the depth map shadows. Depth map is nothing but the intensity of light and the depth that the light follows. So when I check this depth map and when I say render, it shows me the shadows. Now it looks a little more decent. But if you see these edges, they look kind of crooked, not so good, very torn apart. So this is all because of this resolution. If I increase this resolution, say 1024, and if I render this again, it's gonna give me a nice and sharp. If I increase it further, probably 2048, it's gonna give me a more sharper look there. So this, we came from this to this. Okay, the bias is how much softness you want on the edge. If we increase this to something like that, and if we render this image out, okay, nothing yet. I'm just gonna crank this up to something like 2. Okay, we are getting something. Probably 10. Oh, okay, it's gone. 3, 5. Still not there. 2. Here.